Donald Trump looked straight at the royal guard and ordered, "Get him out of the shot." When the guard didn't move quickly enough, he added, "Remove the royal guard." He thought he was asserting authority. What he didn't realize was who he was speaking to. That guard was a Coldstream Guardsman, a soldier who had once carried his dying comrade for kilometers through Taliban territory and never left his post, no matter the danger. But this time, something unexpected happened. The guard broke protocol. He calmly requested 60 seconds. And what he said in those 60 seconds made even Trump fall silent. Want to see how it all played out? Hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Now, let's get into it. Windsor Castle on a crisp June morning in 2018. The ancient stones catch the early light, and there's that particular British stillness in the air that comes just before something significant happens. You know the feeling when history holds its breath, when the very air seems to thicken with anticipation. The castle has stood for nearly 1,000 years, weathering wars, revolutions, and the rise and fall of empires. Its walls have witnessed the signing of treaties, the crowning of kings, and the quiet moments that change the course of nations. Today, it's about to witness something else entirely. A collision between two very different ideas of what it means to stand your ground. Marine One is descending onto the castle grounds, its rotors cutting through the morning quiet like a blade through silk. The helicopter's shadow sweeps across the manicured lawns, past the ancient oak trees that have stood sentinel for centuries. The American president steps out, that familiar red tie whipping in the downdraft, his hair catching the morning light as he squints against the British sun. Already you can see it in his posture. This isn't a man who's come to play by anyone else's rules. This is a man who's used to bending the world to his will, and he's not about to start making exceptions now. But standing there, perfectly motionless at his post, is Corporal James Redley, 32 years old, 6 feet of disciplined muscle and unwavering resolve. 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 in Iraq, and a chest full of medals that tell stories most people couldn't imagine in their darkest nightmares. His bearskin hat, an 18-inch tower of black fur, casts a shadow over eyes that have seen things that would break lesser men. And right now, those eyes are focused straight ahead, following centuries of protocol that run deeper than blood, older than memory. The American delegation sweeps across the courtyard, all sharp suits and barely contained energy. Trump's security detail moves like a well-oiled machine, their earpieces crackling with constant communication, their eyes scanning for threats that don't exist but might. But there's something different about this visit, something that sets it apart from the dozens of diplomatic meetings that have preceded it. You can feel the tension crackling in the air like electricity before a storm, a sense that the careful choreography of international relations is about to be tested in ways no one anticipated. The Queen's staff had been preparing for this moment for weeks, poring over every detail with the obsessive precision that defines royal protocol. Every step choreographed, every possibility anticipated, every potential diplomatic landmine carefully mapped and avoided. The Queen herself had reviewed the schedule 3 times, making subtle adjustments with the wisdom that comes from 7 decades of dealing with world leaders, each one convinced of their own irreplaceable importance. But there's one thing we can't plan for: the unpredictable nature of 2 immovable forces meeting head-on. It's like watching tectonic plates shift, geological forces that have been building pressure for eons suddenly finding themselves in direct conflict. Redley had been standing at his post since dawn, as he did every day, as his predecessors had done for generations before him. His military record read like something out of a war novel, the conspicuous Gallantry Cross for actions in Helmand Province, where he'd single-handedly held off a Taliban assault for 47 minutes while waiting for reinforcement. The Military Cross for his actions in Basra, where he'd led a convoy through an ambush that should have killed them all. The Distinguished Service Medal for classified operations that would remain classified long after he was gone. But the medal that mattered most to him was the one he never talked about, the one that came with the memory of dragging 2 wounded comrades through a Taliban ambush, bullets whining past his ears like angry wasps, their blood mixing with the dust under his fingernails. The man had stared down death and won, not once but dozens of times. A politician's displeasure wasn't going to move him. Hell, a politician's approval wouldn't move him either. The morning light catches the gold thread in his uniform, the intricate embroidery that speaks of centuries of tradition. Each thread has been placed with purpose. Each symbol carries meaning that goes back to battles fought when America was still a collection of rebellious colonies. This isn't just a costume, it's a connection to something larger than any individual, more enduring than any presidency. As the presidential party approaches, you can see the moment Trump notices the guard. His pace slows slightly, his head tilts with that particular expression he gets when something doesn't conform to his expectations. He's used to people stepping aside, bowing, acknowledging his presence with the deference he believes he deserves. But Redley doesn't even blink. He's a statue carved from discipline and duty, and statues don't bow to anyone, not even presidents. The first murmur comes from one of Trump's aides, a quiet suggestion, delivered with a kind of diplomatic delicacy that comes from years of navigating sensitive situations. Perhaps the guard could be repositioned for the photographs. It's a reasonable request, the kind that's probably been made 1,000 times before at 1,000 different events. Protocol officers nod, photographers adjust their equipment, and everyone moves on with the carefully orchestrated dance of international diplomacy. But this isn't 1,000 times before. This is Corporal James Redley, and he's been given his orders. More than that, he's been given a purpose that transcends any single moment, any single visitor, any single photograph. He represents something that can't be repositioned, can't be adjusted, can't be moved for anyone's convenience. The British protocol officers are starting to sweat now, and it's not from the June sun. You can see it in their faces, that particular brand of panic that comes when centuries of tradition collide with modern politics. They're caught between honoring their guest and respecting their own customs. And it's a tightrope walk that's getting more precarious by the minute. These are men who've spent their entire careers managing the impossible, making sure everyone feels important while maintaining the delicate balance of royal protocol. Sir Geoffrey Hartwell, the Queen's equerry, feels his pulse quicken. He's managed state visits for 3 decades, has seen every conceivable diplomatic crisis, has smoothed over conflicts that could have sparked international incidents. But this feels different. This feels like watching 2 freight trains approaching each other on the same track, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop what's coming. Trump's voice rises slightly, that familiar edge creeping in like frost on a window. Why is this guy just standing there? Get him out of the shot. It's not a request anymore, it's a demand, delivered with the casual authority of a man who's used to getting his way, who's built an empire on the belief that everything and everyone has a price. The words hang in the air like smoke, impossible to take back, impossible to ignore. The transformation is subtle but unmistakable. The casual conversation dies, the easy laughter fades. Even the birds seem to fall silent, as if nature itself is holding its breath. This is no longer a diplomatic visit, it's become a test of wills, a collision between 2 very different ideas of what power means. The Secret Service shifts uncomfortably, their trained eyes sweeping the courtyard with renewed intensity. These are professionals who've seen everything: assassination attempts, diplomatic crises, moments when the fate of nations hung in the balance. They've protected presidents through wars and peace, through triumph and scandal. But even they can sense that something's different about this moment, something that doesn't fit their carefully rehearsed protocols. The British guards they've encountered before have always been accommodating when security required it. Professional courtesies extended, positions adjusted, everyone working together for the common good. But Redley isn't budging. Not an inch, not a millimeter. He stands like a mountain, like something that was there before the castle was built and will be there long after it crumbles to dust. The cameras are rolling now, capturing every second of this diplomatic dance that's slowly transforming into something else entirely. The photographers sense it too. This isn't just another ceremonial photo opportunity. This is something raw, something real, something that will define careers and make headlines. Their fingers hover over their shutters, ready to capture the moment when something gives way. The Queen's equerry looks like he might faint, caught between his duty to accommodate the visiting head of state and his respect for the traditions that defined his very existence. Sir Geoffrey has managed impossible situations before. He's negotiated protocol disputes with dictators, smoothed over cultural misunderstandings with kings, found diplomatic solutions to problems that seemed unsolvable. But this feels different. This feels personal. And through it all, Redley stands. His breathing is steady, his posture perfect, his gaze fixed on some distant point that only he can see. It's a point beyond the castle walls, beyond the political theater, beyond the cameras and the crowds. It's a point that represents everything he's fought for, everything he's sacrificed for, everything he's willing to die for. He's been in situations where a wrong move meant death, where hesitation could cost lives, where the difference between courage and cowardice was measured in milliseconds. Combat zones where the enemy was clearly defined, where the rules of engagement were written in blood and experience. This is just another day at the office, just another test of the principles that have carried him through hell and back. The tension in the courtyard is thick enough to cut with a knife, so dense you could almost reach out and touch it. Trump's frustration is building like pressure in a boiler, and you can see it in the way his hands gesture more sharply, the way his voice carries that particular tone that suggests consequences are coming. He's not used to being ignored, and he's certainly not used to being denied by someone he considers beneath his notice. But then something shifts, subtle as a change in the wind but unmistakable to those who know how to read the signs. Maybe it's the way the morning light catches the medals on Redley's chest, each one a testament to courage under fire. Maybe it's something in the guard's absolute stillness that speaks to something deeper, something that transcends politics and protocol. Trump pauses, really looks at the man for the first time. This isn't just some ceremonial soldier playing dress up for the tourists. This is a warrior. The kind of man who's seen the elephant, as they say in military circles. The kind of man who's earned his place through blood and sacrifice rather than birthright or wealth. The kind of man who's proven himself in the crucible of combat, where character is tested and either forged or broken. The medals tell their own story. The conspicuous gallantry cross with its distinctive white and purple ribbon, the military cross with its simple elegance, the campaign medals that speak of deployments to places most people can't pronounce. Each one represents moments when Redley chose duty over safety, service over self-preservation, honor over the easy path. The Queen's staff are exchanging glances now, a silent communication that speaks of years of diplomatic experience. They know this moment is balanced on a knife's edge, poised between disaster and triumph with no middle ground in sight. One wrong word, one misunderstood gesture, and what should be a celebration of Anglo-American friendship could turn into an international incident that makes headlines for all the wrong reasons. Sir Geoffrey catches the eye of the American chief of staff, a man he's worked with before on other visits. There's a moment of mutual understanding, a recognition that they're both professionals trying to manage an impossible situation. But what can they do? You can't order a president to back down, and you can't order a royal guard to abandon his post. Redley's commanding officer, Colonel Marcus Thornfield, watches from a discreet distance, his own tension building like a storm cloud. He knows his man, knows what Redley is capable of both on and off the battlefield. He's seen him make impossible decisions under impossible pressure, has watched him carry wounded comrades through enemy fire with the same steady determination. He's showing now, but he also knows that sometimes the right thing to do isn't the easy thing to do. Sometimes leadership means trusting your people to make the hard choices, even when those choices might have consequences that reach far beyond the immediate moment. The standoff continues, each second stretching like an eternity, time itself seeming to slow under the weight of the moment. Trump's aides are whispering urgently among themselves, their voices barely audible as they try to find a diplomatic solution that will satisfy everyone. They're seasoned professionals, men and women who've navigated political minefields across the globe. But this situation doesn't fit any of their playbooks. The British protocol officers are consulting their notebooks with increasing desperation, searching for precedent that simply doesn't exist. These leather-bound volumes contain the accumulated wisdom of centuries, detailed instructions for every conceivable diplomatic scenario. But there's nothing in there about what to do when an American president demands that a royal guard abandon his post. But Redley isn't thinking about precedent or protocol or diplomatic solutions. He's thinking about a dusty forward operating base in Afghanistan, about the weight of responsibility that comes with wearing the uniform. He's thinking about the oath he took, not just to Queen and country, but to something larger than himself, to the idea that some things are worth standing for regardless of the cost. The medals on his chest aren't just decorations, they're reminders of moments when he chose the hard path over the easy one. The conspicuous gallantry cross doesn't just represent one moment of heroism. It represents a lifetime of choosing duty over comfort, sacrifice over safety, honor over convenience. And right now, his duty is crystal clear. The memory comes unbidden that day in Helmand when everything went wrong. The convoy under attack, wounded men crying out for help, the enemy closing in from all sides. He could have found cover, could have waited for reinforcement, could have made the safe choice. Instead, he'd run into the killing zone, dragged his wounded comrades to safety one by one, stood his ground against impossible odds. The American president takes a step closer, his security detail tensing almost imperceptibly. These are men trained to read body language, to detect threats before they materialize, and what they're seeing doesn't fit their experience. This isn't hostility or defiance in the traditional sense. This is something else entirely. But there's something different in Trump's expression now. The frustration is still there, written in the tight lines around his eyes. But it's mixed with something else, a grudging recognition of what he's seeing. Maybe it's the businessman in him, recognizing quality when he sees it. Maybe it's something deeper, some part of him that still remembers what it means to respect principle over The moment stretches on, and you can feel the weight of history pressing down on the courtyard like a physical force. This isn't just about protocol anymore, it's about what happens when two different kinds of power meet head-on: political power versus moral authority, wealth versus honor, celebrity versus service. The collision of two worldviews that have been building toward this moment for decades. Redley's thoughts drift, for just a moment, to that day in Helmand Province, the sound of gunfire echoing off the mountains, the smell of cordite mixing with dust and blood, the weight of his wounded comrades as he dragged them to safety across ground that erupted with bullets. He'd been afraid then any sane person would have been. Fear is what keeps you alive in situations like that. But he'd done what needed to be done because that's what soldiers do. Not because of orders, not because of regulations, but because, when everything else falls away, you're left with a fundamental choice between who you are and who you pretend to be. The comparison isn't lost on him. Different battlefield, different enemy, but the same fundamental choice. Do what's easy, or do what's right. Do what's expected, or do what's necessary. Do what serves the moment, or do what serves something larger than the moment. Trump's security chief leans in, whispering something urgent in the president's ear. The man's job is to protect the president from all threats, foreign and domestic, and right now, this British soldier represents an unknown quantity. His training tells him to create distance, to remove variables, to control the situation. But Trump waves him off with an irritated gesture, his attention fixed entirely on the guard who won't move. The Queen's equerry makes one last desperate attempt at diplomacy, stepping forward with a carefully prepared suggestion about alternative positioning for the photographs. He's rehearsed this moment, prepared for this contingency, ready to offer a solution that saves face for everyone involved. But before he can speak, Trump raises a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. The gesture is simple, almost casual, but it carries the weight of absolute authority. In that moment, everyone in the courtyard understands that this is no longer a diplomatic negotiation. This has become something more personal, more immediate, more real than any— "Hold on," Trump says, his voice carrying clearly across the courtyard, cutting through the tension like a blade through silk. The chatter stops instantly. Every conversation dies mid-sentence, every eye turns toward him. Even the cameras seem to focus more intently, their operators sensing that something significant is about to happen, something that will define this moment in ways none of them can predict. He looks at Redley for a long moment, really studies him with the intensity of a man who's built his fortune on reading people, on understanding what makes them tick, takes in the perfect posture that speaks of years of training, the unwavering gaze that has seen too much to be shaken by anything as simple as political pressure, the quiet dignity that radiates from the man like heat from a forge. There's something in that moment of study, something that passes between them without words, recognition, perhaps, the acknowledgement of one kind of strength by another, the businessman who conquered Manhattan, real estate seeing something familiar in the soldier who conquered his own fear. And then, unexpectedly, he smiles, not the practiced smile of a politician, not the calculating expression of a dealmaker, but something genuine, something that speaks to a respect that transcends political differences and cultural divides. "You know what?" Trump says, his voice louder now, carrying to every corner of the courtyard with the authority of absolute decision. "Leave him alone, he's doing his job." The words hang in the air for a moment, their significance sinking in slowly. The relief that washes over the British delegation is almost visible, a collective exhalation that seems to release months of accumulated tension. The protocol officers exchange glances of amazement, scarcely able to believe what they've just witnessed. The Queen's equerry looks like he might weep with gratitude, his hands trembling slightly as he adjusts his notebook. Sir Geoffrey has managed diplomatic crises for 3 decades, but he's never seen anything quite like this, a moment when personal respect trumped political expediency. When principle won out over convenience, but Redley doesn't move, doesn't acknowledge the words, doesn't show any sign that he's even heard them, because a royal guard doesn't break character, not even for praise from the most powerful man in the world. The rules that govern his behavior don't bend for anyone. Not presidents, not kings, not even the approval of history itself. Trump chuckles, a sound that carries genuine amusement rather than derision. "I like him," he says to his aide, loud enough for everyone to hear. "He's got backbone." The moment passes, but its effects ripple outward like stones thrown into still water. The photographers capture it all, the president's change of heart, the guard's unwavering stance, the British officials' barely concealed relief. They know they're witnessing something that will be remembered long after the diplomatic niceties are forgotten. As the presidential party moves on, continuing their tours of the castle's ancient halls and chambers, the story begins to take on a life of its own. The camera crews, sensing they've witnessed something special, something that transcends the usual diplomatic theater, make sure their footage gets priority treatment. Within hours, the video will be racing around the world at the speed of light, shared and reshared millions of times across every platform imaginable. But for now, in this moment, Redley continues his vigil. The courtyard gradually empties, the excitement fades like morning mist, and the normal rhythms of castle life resume. Guards change shifts with the precision of a Swiss watch. Tourists continue their visits with their cameras and guidebooks, and life goes on as it has for nearly 1,000 years. Yet something has changed, something subtle but unmistakable. The other guards feel it, the staff sense it, even the ancient stones themselves seem to carry a different energy. A reminder that sometimes, the most powerful act is simply refusing to be moved. Sometimes strength isn't about bending others to your will, it's about remaining true to your principles when everything around you is demanding compromise. Redley will stand his post for another 4 hours before his relief arrives. Private Thomas Whitmore, a young soldier who's heard the whispers about what happened but would never dream of asking questions. He'll eat a quiet lunch in the guards' mess, polish his equipment with the same meticulous care he's shown for years, and prepare for the next day as if nothing extraordinary has occurred. He won't speak about what happened. Royal guards don't give interviews, don't seek publicity, don't explain themselves to civilians or journalists or anyone else. The code of silence that governs their behavior is absolute, forged in the royal guard who stood his ground. Years later, when historians write about the Trump presidency, this moment will merit barely a footnote. But for those who witnessed it, who felt the electric tension of that June morning, it will remain vivid and immediate. Redley will go on to serve with distinction until his retirement, He'll never seek to capitalize on his moment of fame, never write a book or give paid speeches. He'll simply continue to serve, as he always has, with quiet dignity and unwavering principle. The lesson of that day isn't about politics or protocol. It's about the power of simply standing your ground when you know you're right, about the courage it takes to remain immovable in the face of pressure, about the difference between bending and breaking in a world that often seems to reward the loudest voice, the most dramatic gesture, the most outrageous behavior. Corporal James Redley proved that sometimes the most powerful statement is silence, the most effective action is stillness, the greatest strength is the simple refusal to be moved. And somewhere in England, at posts around the world, guards continue to stand their watch, carrying on traditions that have endured for centuries, protecting values that transcend politics, embodying the kind of honor that can't be bought, sold, or voted away. The story of the Royal Guard who stood his ground becomes more than just a viral video. It becomes a reminder of what's possible when principle meets power, when duty confronts authority, when a single person decides that some things are worth standing for literally and figuratively in the end. That's what makes it worth telling, not the drama of the moment, but the enduring truth it represents. That sometimes the most important battles are fought not with weapons or words, but with the simple act of refusing to move when you know you're right. And that, perhaps, is the most powerful lesson of all.